what was the reason for Karunanidhi to set up Rajamannar committee?
No, as I said, the party was wedded to the idea of breaking away from India. The Rajamannar committee followed an American model of devolution and federalism, where the states have a huge say in many of these things. And the states have various avenues to raise resources. Only immigration, customs, and things like that are controlled by the federal government. So the Rajamannar committee actually was looking at the American model. And Punchi says this, and that is true. Because here we have an extremely centralized government. We have been independent for more than 75 years. Our preoccupation even today is India's territorial integrity.
Yeah, correct.
Right? Yeah. So it ran in the party's blood, if you may. So that explains.
Yeah, but do you see that, like, now that Stalin has announced the Kurian Joseph committee, do you see any similarities between the political circumstances in 1969 and 2025?
There are similarities and dissimilarities. Firstly, all these governments at the center, including the governments where the DMK was a part of the government, they all have centralizing tendencies. Once you go there, you see that it depends upon whether you're the son or the father. When you're the son, you want more independence. When you become a father, you don't want to grant that much to your son because you think your son is not capable of handling that kind of independence. He has to grow up a bit further. Now, that is the kind of relationship that we have between the states and the centers, where the center decides whether you're well behaved, whether constitutional machinery is broken down, and so on and so forth. Let me tell you, the Rajamannar committee asked for the abolition of 356. It also asked on the dismissal of the government. There's a provision called or otherwise. The governor sends a report to dismiss the government. If he doesn't, there is a proviso which says or otherwise, which was what was used in 1990 to dismiss Karunanidhi's government a second time, because the then governor Barnala did not submit a report. So this provision was invoked. So as early as 1971, Rajamannar said that should go away. And if it had gone away, Karunanidhi's government would have not been dismissed so quickly. The similarity is that every central government has a centralizing tendency. Okay, GST is another manifestation of it. Okay, although the states consented to it. Okay, there were a few states who held back. NEET is another. There were fine doctors before in the country before NEET. Will they become finer? Not clear. So there is this tendency. There was this tendency in the Congress administrations. There was this tendency in the current administration. In fact, an overweening tendency to centralize everything in this administration, and this administration which aims for uniformity more than unity. Okay, so it is more than imperative that this announcement for him actually is a very vocal stand against what the DMK has always stood for and why it is again raising this issue again. Because I don't think any major recommendations are going to come out of this Kurian committee. Anything that will be drastically different from the earlier recommendations. We have all the recommendations. Okay, it could be this committee's report could probably will review all the trajectory of this demand, what has transpired so far, what has changed, what has not changed. Much has not changed. Much hasn't changed. But then you don't have the ball in your court. Okay, you can keep asking. You tell me. Even the regional autonomy, even the delimitation conference here, you wouldn't see a great overwhelming response. People came, they spoke, etc. But we have been in the forefront. Tamil Nadu has always been in the forefront of all these. We have been well ahead of our times. But the problem is, when the DMK was part of the central administrations, it did not raise any of this.
That is a contradiction.
Yeah. It became a fellow father talking to a state son. Yeah. Okay. So number one. So that, because it's a very difficult proposition, because you have to bring every other state on board. although Kalainar Karunanidhi, when introducing that resolution on state autonomy, he said there are even Congress chief ministers who are aspiring for this, but they are afraid to voice it. Maybe. But now the country is ruled by, in about 17, 18 states, you have the ruling party in power. You have a number of diverse regional parties. The situation has radically changed. You have a number of regional parties. But even fellow regional parties are not asking for the same that the DMK is asking for. So maybe we have failed in trying to persuade the other parties, in selling this idea, because when the Rajamannar committee report happened, the report was sent not to the Prime Minister alone, it was sent to all the chief ministers, it was sent to all the parliamentary party leaders. I didn't see an echo from the other side.
Yes.
So, are the communists on board? We don't know. As far as fiscal autonomy, maybe they will.
Correct.
Okay. It even speaks about, these vice chancellor appointments and so on.
That's
I
a
didn't
major
see any
issue everywhere in India.
Yeah.
Non-BJP ruled states.
So I didn't see many recommendations there on the appointment of vice chancellors, whether the governor should have it or not. But the appointment of governor had been an area of contention. So this is essentially reinforcing the DMK's idea or ideology as to what it has stood for all the time. So he's just renewing that pledge. So that is, and you're expecting elections in about a year. So it is also setting the narrative. It is setting the narrative towards, the extreme centralization of the central administration and government, and how states have lost out, especially states which are at loggerheads with the BJP administration, principally the DMK government here, and probably West Bengal government. But West Bengal government is not speaking about this.
Correct.
Okay, it has a different set of priorities. It has taken a different tack to take on the BJP. Here, this has been the party's established line for a very long time.
So going back to the Rajamannar committee, so did it help to buttress Karunanidhi's image as a national leader, or did it help him politically?
That's a very good question. You will be surprised. The first salvo against the Rajamannar committee report was fired by Jansangh leader Vajpayee in Udaipur in the Jansangh conference. He said this will stoke dangerous regional tendencies. And the other comment was Kalainar Karunanidhi had put a respectable man like Rajamannar had turned him into a symbol of separatism. So no, it didn't. It raised his stock here. In fact, it brought him a lot of trouble, because this is what MGR capitalized on. He called him a separatist force, and he said the ADMK is all for national unity. He even changed the name of the Anna DMK into All India Anna DMK, right? During the emergency happened. So a lot of his opponents, the opponents got together to paint him as a separatist, a closet separatist who was actually asking for regional autonomy.
You mentioned that the Rajamannar committee report brought in or gave Karunanidhi a lot of troubles. So do you think that the same troubles will happen to M.K. Stalin too?
No, I don't think so, because I think this is more a pro forma gesture from his part, because I think the Chief Minister is very well aware that this is a singular demand coming from Tamil Nadu, and it has no momentum, it has no backers from everywhere else. I'm sure he's, you remember when he took over, he sent letters on a social justice forum to several chief ministers and leaders of parties. We haven't still heard if anybody responded.
Yep.
So these ideas are singularly, they belong to Tamil Nadu. NEET abolition, it's a singular Tamil Nadu issue. Everybody has fallen in line. We are preparing our students, but we are still agitating. We have taken the legal route. This legal route had worked in the case of the governor withholding Ascent.
Yep.
Okay, so we had a very proactive Supreme Court. We'll have to wait to see. A review petition has already been filed.
Yep.
Okay, but we may not taste such victory all the time. So I think he knows where he stands with a mighty central administration. There are few like him who are fighting this Goliath. And this fight will continue because it is also helping him to reinforce his political credential as a man who can stand up to the BJP. Few can stand up to the BJP today because many of these other regional leaders, like Mr. Patnaik or Nitish Kumar or Chandrababu Naidu, have actually, if you can't beat them, you join them. They've joined them. So there are very few people who are voices of dissent. He thinks of himself as the prime mover of that dissent. That way, I think, in as much as that position is concerned, this gesture should be seen in that context. Nothing major will come out of it.
So you mean it's a symbolic...
It is a very symbolic gesture, and then to set the narrative, this will be one of the issues that will come up in the future. The DMK is trying to always steer the narrative the way it wants it. And it's very good at it.
The criticisms have started pouring in against this setting up of new committee. Especially the BJP said it will create a call for separatism. so those things will happen again and again, right? So how will Stalin or his party will counter this?
I think the BJP's response about separatism, I don't think will gain traction. I don't think anybody believes any of these committees will lead to separatism anymore. It was a very different time in 1974 when his father raised this issue. He was almost every week he spoke about this. He was consumed by the idea of state autonomy. He really wanted to, I told you he was a very dynamic man. He wanted to deliver, he wanted to do different things. This was the man who built houses for Dalits in the whole of India. The first time houses for Dalits were built here. So this was the man who came up with the slum development board, slum clearance board, where slums were cleared and you see all these tenements. It is a result of his work. This is the man who streamlined the public distribution system. Today, Tamil Nadu is a leader in public distribution. Okay, PDS. So and he tinkered with the social justice. He expanded the pie a little bit with the Satyanathan Commission. So he was a very energetic chief minister who really took his job very, very seriously. So it was a very different moment. It was a moment when Indira Gandhi was also, they were both very young and they hadn't been chastened or mellowed down by experience. They were in the prime of their youth. So it was a very contentious period. Here we see a 70-year plus chief minister who had seen a lot of public life. If he looks back at his father's experiences, they're a great a book of lessons, or he could learn so much from there. And I think he's a very wise and a very wise man. He's full of experience. So I don't think the BJP's claim that this will lead to separatism will really gain traction. That's a very desperate plea. The BJP should come up with something better.
It's a pleasure talking to you, Mr. R Kannan. Thank you so much for your insights and your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Amir. And thank you to all your viewers.